Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and today I'm joined by Lucas Nelson, the group president of Bud and Mary's. Lucas, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Justin. Looking forward to it.
So we're going to smoke weed together like Elon Musk did on Joe Rogan's podcast sometime?
You know, that got a lot of buzz, which is a lot of what we're trying to do, especially in this state. So whatever it takes to get some eyeballs, let's do it.
You say it got a lot of buzz. Well done, Lucas. Well done. So
not my first rodeo.
Yes. Okay, so obviously we're talking about marijuana today, growing right here in the state of Iowa. There are a lot of questions that surround this topic, like how is it legal? Is there still a cap? And how do I get a medical marijuana card? What kind of variations are there? We're going to be asking all of that today. But before we do that, I do have a very small request for you. Could you share this show with a friend? Just one friend. It's a pretty small ask. Let me ask you this. How much did you pay for the Iowa Podcast? How much are you paying for it? You're not. It's free. And so I just have, as payment, I just ask for one thing. Just share the Iowa Podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter or something with something that sounds like this. Hey, everybody, I've been listening to the Iowa Podcast, and it's absolutely incredible. You should check it out and subscribe. Literally, that's it. That's all I'm asking. Okay, now let's talk to Lucas, our resident weed dealer. Bud and Mary's obviously growing marijuana here in the state of Iowa, for those that don't know. But there are a lot of questions I have for you, of course, but let's start here. What are you actually growing? I think this is something we all skip over, but this is obviously very important. So what are you growing exactly?
Yeah, it's a common misconception at times with our program, and I think there's lots of history behind why that might be, but we are growing true marijuana plants with high THC in them, the same as you would see in other medical programs, the same as you would see in other adult use programs across the country. We do that right from Des Moines. And those products that we create are all based on those molecules that we pull out of the plants that we're growing right here in our facility. It's not hemp. It's not low THC. It is identical at times and otherwise very similar genetics to what you might find in other states. And again, kind of the history of the program and the strange launch with the THC cap that's no longer exists on the products. I think that's all the reason why, but you come down here to our facility, you look into our grow rooms, and you'd see plants just like you see in any other recreational or medical program across the United States.
Now, you say the THC cap no longer exists. When did that roll back? Because there used to be, I think, a medical cap on THC levels, correct?
There used to be. It was a 3% cap on THC that was lifted and removed in 2020. So a bill that was signed that changed a lot of things for the better in this program. But that was a really, really important turning point because now we're able to offer full THC, as much or as little THC as we may want to put into a product. And that cap is gone, and I don't think it's ever coming back. And so it really marks kind of, the start of a different program than what Iowa originally had. And the more people that we can make sure hear that, know that, and understand it, I think the better.
Yeah, I mean, now it's between the practitioner, the physician, and their patient because, they know best. If someone needs a cannabis product, they know what levels they need to have. So why would we be capping it, right? Especially when other states are going recreational.
That's exactly right.
So how much are you growing? Like it's still weird. I'm in the generation, obviously, where marijuana was illegal, right? And people were being busted on the street and put in prison for selling it. So it's this bizarre time we live in where, and we're not going to get into the politics of it, right? But it's this bizarre time where this is this illegal thing in my mind. It's not, obviously, but in my mind, it's just a weird adjustment, and it's being grown. Like I live in Des Moines, and I think your facility is close to Des Moines. Is it in Des Moines?
It is. It is on the southeast side of the city.
And
Yes.
so it's like I could probably, drive 5 minutes wherever this thing is, and it's being grown in my backyard. Have you had any knocks from the police lately?
You
Be
know, we
honest,
have
Lucas.
not. We've had a pretty good working relationship, I'd say. But the funny part is that we're in a pretty nondescript building. I don't think you'd ever know it just from looking outside. Now, sometimes the smell might give it away when, especially on harvest days. But from the outside, you'd never know.
So
It
funny.
just it blends in with the scenery, so to speak.
So because there are some, I don't understand all this, you probably do, but because there are some federal laws and it's still highly regulated, do you have like a lot of security then, I'm assuming?
We do. We have a lot of physical security, things like fences. There's full set of cameras. There's a full alarm system. Everything is badge reader, so card access controlled. Lots of those types of systems that would prevent you, even if you got into the building, let's say, prevent you from actually getting to any of the actual cannabis. Same thing is true in our dispensaries, locked behind multiple different, let's say, types of vaults and things to make sure that no one's able to access it when they're not supposed to be. So yeah, there really is still a lot of security. That's true across the country in all of these different states, but certainly a lot of it around our operation here in Iowa.
So earlier you were talking about, and obviously I would expect that, all that security, but earlier you were talking about like you're going into the chemistry a little bit of the biology, maybe that's a better word, of unique, do we call them strains or types of plants? So like, are we getting the same stuff that Colorado gets? Is like the same exact plant? Are there variations, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we grow a whole variety of different genetics, but most commonly referred to as strains.
Okay.
For instance, there might be strains people have heard of in the blueberry family. We've got a strain called Blueberry Bakery. We've got a strain called Screaming Gorilla. We've got Emerald OG, some of the older and more classic cannabis varieties that you'd find in many states. But yes, the genetics are very similar to those that you'd see in Colorado or you'd see in California or Washington or, go the other direction in Illinois or Michigan. What it's allowed us to do, which is really pretty neat, is that because our Colorado operation has done such a nice job with the some of the vape products that they've launched, we've actually been able to translate that and bring those vape products directly into Iowa. We are the creators of the number one selling vape in Colorado for the past 3 years. And that product is available here in Iowa, and it'll soon be available in Michigan as well through our operation out there. So, there was this misconception again that things that you were able to get in Iowa's program weren't as good as what you might find in other states. And that may have been true years ago, but it certainly isn't now. We're not only comparable with a place like Colorado or Illinois or Michigan. In some instances, we're better, actually. We're better on price than Illinois, for instance. We don't quite
Interesting.
have every single product variety yet, and we're fighting for that in this upcoming legislative session. But pound for pound, what we do have, I'd put our program and our products up against any other in the entire country.
Now, you said something really interesting that I don't understand, but you were mentioning names that clearly are not scientific names, like genus Spectarius, or I don't even know what like you weren't naming like these scientific strands. You were naming like bizarre, kind of kitschy, hilarious names. So does marijuana have like seed brands, kind of like maybe Iowans would be familiar with, like DeKalb or something?
It's interesting. Over the course of time, I mean, we're talking decades, hundreds of years here, these strain names have become really the shorthand way that we refer to cannabis varieties. And there's probably a lot of history behind that that's related to it being illegal in so many places around the world. And it's, checkered past, let's say. That has become the shorthand for how you might describe a particular set of different molecules that all came together to make this plant. But the interesting thing about it is that what the shorthand is really for is this combination of cannabinoids, so THC, CBD, those things that we're familiar with, and then terpenes. And terpenes are responsible for the smell and the taste and a little bit of the effect that you might get when you consume cannabis. And the nice part about our operation is that even though we don't quite yet have flower, we do have the ability through the scientific team that we have here to be able to extract all those molecules and recombine at least some of them back into the product so that you can get a vape that does have at least some of those terpenes that were in the plant. And there's evidence out there that suggests that you really do want that full effect. You want the full body of everything that was in that plant. And while we can't quite do that without having flower, which is, again, why we're going to start fighting for it, you can at least get awfully close to it through some of our scientific processes.
What does that mean, flower? I'm not familiar with that term either.
Yeah, so flower, bud, that is going to be the typical, most common experience people have had with cannabis. That is the raw plant that you would smoke that maybe gets rolled into a pre-roll or a joint. Most people that consumed before it was legal across the country were probably consuming what we would now call flower. In states that have medical or adult use programs, it's the number one product. It's, again, the raw plant. It's probably the most accessible for most people. It's the most common that they've seen before. But most importantly, it's also the cheapest. It's the cheapest to produce. It's, you grow the plant, you allow it to dry and cure, and you're pretty much there. You do a little bit of trim work, of course, on it, but that's the base of what so many people are used to and what they're frankly looking for, and what a lot of the evidence has been there to support that. That's where you're getting pain relief. That's where you're getting some of these benefits that we know people experience when they consume. So Iowa doesn't allow for it at the moment, but we're doing everything in our power to make sure that changes here very soon.
Now, okay, so Iowa doesn't allow for it, and like Iowa does allow, you mentioned earlier, full THC, but Iowa does not allow flower. So what's the most simple way of explaining why that's different? Because I don't understand.
I think what it means is that at the beginning of this program, there was a concern that the legislature had that they didn't want people smoking cannabis. And the way you prevent that is don't allow flower into the program. Well, as time has gone on, there are devices out there very similar to the vape devices that we sell in the dispensary every single day that would allow you to vaporize the flower. So you're not smoking it, you're not combusting it. You are inhaling it through vaporization, and it's a safer way. It doesn't come with all the concerns that smoking would. What you're actually able to get out of the vaporized flower is THC and those other molecules. Now, back in the day, we used to actually have to go in and again, with our scientific procedures, limit how much THC someone was going to get in any of the products that may consume. And that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't comport with science. It isn't backed up by the evidence that this is good for patients. And so fortunately, we were able to get that cap removed. So now let's say we had flower and you went to buy vaporized flower, you'd be able to consume everything that was in there. Just like in the vapes that we create, some of them have, 500 milligrams of THC. Some of them might have 800. All of that is allowed. We have a lot more flexibility over what we can put into a product. And that helps us meet all the needs that Iowans across the state have.
So it sounds like you're growing the same thing in your facility. It's just the way in which you can sell it, or like the parts or the method or the delivery in which you can sell it differ here in Iowa. Is that
exactly?
Okay, got it.
You got it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what is the holdout for recreational? Because we have all these states. I mean, obviously it's going to happen, right? It's kind of, anyone with half a functioning brain knows at this point it's probably going to happen. We're on the same trajectory as prohibition for alcohol. It probably will happen. And Iowa hasn't done, especially Illinois did it. Colorado's been, I think, since 2012. A lot of states are doing it now. What is our holdout in Iowa? Do you know?
It's probably a combination of different things. There isn't a big grassroots push for it. And even if there was, there's no ballot initiative process in Iowa for anything. And that is how most of these state programs, not quite all, but most of the state programs have started, is through ballot initiatives. The other thing that I'd say is you look at a state like Illinois, and we all in the industry assume that part of the reason is that the state was having financial difficulties. That's pretty well reported over the course of several years. Iowa's not in that position, and I think that probably has driven part of the let's say lack of interest because there isn't that, financial reason that we want all this additional tax revenue or we need this additional tax revenue. So I did think it's a combination of factors. It's not something that we're actively pushing for in this state because I think this medical program with a couple tweaks, just like adding vaped flower, really can function very, very well and deliver all the benefits that it needs. And state's not ready for recreational. We understand that and are fine with that. And again, I think the thing that is incumbent upon Iowa is that we need to make sure all those who do need it can have some sort of access to it. We're not just quite there yet with not having flower in our program and only having 5 dispensaries. That also is extremely limiting. So we've got to make sure we get that changed as well.
Yeah. And in line with this, right? Like you did, because, recreational, like I just said, is a thing. And you did recently have a name change going from, I think it was Med Farm, and I think in June you switched to Bud and Mary's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so, the name change to me at least is a demonstration that you're ready for a recreational market. So, Lucas, do you know something we don't?
That name change was really much more about aligning our entire operation with what we felt in the Bud and Mary's name was a more approachable company name, a more approachable message than we previously had. Obviously, as we were rec in Colorado and we will be in Michigan, we thought it was an important concept that we would have all of our companies across the country aligned. So, that was part of the driving force. But, I was surprised, I'd say, but we wanted to make sure we heard the feedback and then addressed it. But even Med Farm, Iowa, our original name, was a bit unapproachable to some people and made people kind of conjure up this pharmaceutical idea that, cannabis is not.
Right.
It's not to say that it isn't safe. It's not to say that it isn't made in a very tightly regulated, whether it's, our facility and the manner in which we create products or the way it's tested by third parties. But nonetheless, there was a idea out there that, well, that's a pharmaceutical and I'm not, dying, for instance. I don't have a stage 4 cancer condition or something. So that must not be for me. And what we find so often is that cannabis can make such a big impact on people who are just dealing with day-to-day chronic pain. And I think we've seen a bump in recognition of the program, understanding more, info hunting than we did even under our previous name. So, it's been an awesome change, and it's certainly a bit more fun of a name too.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I'm just going to put words in your mouth and say that you're probably ready for the future of recreational in Iowa whenever that may happen, and you're getting ahead of it. Would that be fair to say?
I think we always want to be prepped for whatever happens. This industry changes. Sometimes it feels hour to hour. So you always got to be on your toes.
Yeah, so you mentioned chronic pain being one of the primary uses. Maybe that's not, but one of the uses, I guess I should say, for medical marijuana, just cannabis in general. What other uses are you seeing it used for? Like, what are the top 5 popular uses for cannabis?
Yeah, chronic pain is definitely number one. And that ranges from, physical pain, that ranges from actual conditions that may cause pain. It might be mental pain. It's injuries that people have had. It's, fibromyalgia. It's pain from cancer. It's all sorts of different things. It really runs the gamut there. And again, cannabis has the best evidence of being able to help reduce that chronic pain. And so that's number one. PTSD is another condition that we treat a lot. We see a lot of folks that are struggling with that condition. You move on down the list from there, it gets a little bit more narrow. We see a decent number of cancer folks that have been battling that, or that, maybe have completed their treatment but are still experiencing pain from whether it's chemo or radiation or it's other, treatments that they've had. Still see people with MS for sure, and Parkinson's as well. And then we obviously are able to treat seizure conditions especially with our CBD products. Now, as CBD has kind of grown like mad all over the country, we've started to see less and less of that because it's more accessible in other formats. It's easily acquirable on the internet. So we've seen that drop off a little bit, but at the end of the day, chronic pain, those pain type conditions, that's number one that we're treating, and it's where I think cannabis offers the most benefits anyway, so it makes sense.
It's interesting how you say mental pain. That is an incredible term because some people are dealing with mental anguish. I would actually say mental anguish, and like it's basically akin to pain, but it's not a physical pain, therefore it's dismissed. So the fact that you use the word mental pain, I think shows a lot of empathy for the depth of struggle some people are going through. Is that just your term, or is that a recognized term that is not on my radar?
No, it's something that we've really, we've kind of used it as a way to tie in chronic pain to, hey, there's more than just physical ailments that people deal with. And, I think we all maybe are waking up to some of the stigmatizing that we as a country, let's say, have done of people's mental health, and that we want to be working on their brain health just as much as we would someone who broke their leg or, has some other physical ailment. But it really is, it's been eye-opening. It's pretty amazing, honestly, to me, standing in our dispensary, hearing our dispensary staff speak with patients or hearing their stories when we meet together as a team to go over results and how we're doing as a company. It's unbelievable how many people are walking around Des Moines or Sioux City or our other markets in this state and dealing with pain that has been brought on by their mental health. And again, we do a poor job as a country, probably, addressing that. And so we make sure that we always call that out because we recognize that it's something that people deal with. It's a struggle that people have. And if we can offer any sort of benefit, if there's another option for those people that are dealing with that we want to make sure they've thought, hey, maybe medical cannabis is the thing for me. Maybe this is the type of treatment that can help. And we've seen some really, really good results. I mean, I can't claim that we've done any sort of big study on our patients because we haven't, but anecdotally, we have seen lots and lots of benefits and lots of people be able to reduce that mental pain because of these products.
Yeah, and I like one of the most, this is a weird way to say this, but one of the most visible sources of the mental pain are like, we think of soldiers and the trauma they've gone to. And I think for most people, at least generally, 30,000 foot view, that makes sense. They've seen some trauma. Obviously, that's messing with them. If you actually listen to some of these soldier stories that are dealing with PTSD and mental pain, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy what they go through. I was talking to the former head chaplain of the Iowa National Guard, Major Skip Manis, about this issue. And he's like, everyone thinks of the soldier that, goes through some trauma, loses a limb or something, but they don't think of the people at home because it's like, well, you haven't seen war, therefore you have nothing to complain about. And he says they really diminish people's unique neurology. All across the spectrum, people who are dealing with tinnitus, people who are dealing with anxiety, people who are dealing with extreme things. Some people can handle it, some people cannot. And he says, and those people that cannot are not weaker people, because I've seen them do things that are require way more mental strength than the other things people are dealing with. So he's like, we really diminish people's individual experience by saying, no, this is something that should cause anxiety, like war. But if you're just a person that's been domestically, you haven't even left the state of Iowa, you're not dealing with anything. Like that's a bunch of bull.
Of course.
It's really cool that I've seen people. This was years ago, but they were, and I'm not going to say who they are, but they were illegally leaving the state to treat one of their children's seizures with cannabis. I'm assuming you're seeing a lot of replacement for like beta blockers, antidepressants, anxiety medication. People want like a plant-based solution to that. You seeing a lot of that?
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, I think it helps. I mean, some of the evidence out there in the scientific world would suggest that cannabis can just kind of help to level people.
Sure.
We're all made up differently, like you suggest. We've all got different neurologies. We seem to be able to point out physical and noticeable differences with our eyes, but can't recognize that everyone's wired just a little bit differently. So yeah, we do. We see a lot of folks that are looking for just a little bit of calming or leveling in their life, and that this this really does help with it. It really does offer some benefits to a lot of those people.
So how are people consuming it? Do you guys make edibles? Do you only do vape? What is the spectrum of offerings that you guys are working on?
Yeah, so right now we've got everything that the state really allows. So we've got vape for inhaled. We've also got what we call a sugar wax. It's another inhaled product. What it's going to allow people to do is dose in a very precise manner and get as close as we can get to the full effects of the plant. Those are called concentrates in most markets and most other, medical or adult use markets. So we've got a product in that category. And then the state doesn't allow edibles per se, so we can't make things like gummies, for instance, but we do have tablets, and those function the same. It's something that you take orally and is going to last you for a long period of time. It may take a while to onset, but it does last you for a long period of time, not unlike a gummy would be. We've got oil that you also consume orally. And then we've got a cream product as well that's really good for kind of localized pain, joint arthritis, that type of thing. So a good range. Again, we don't have flower and we're hoping to change that, but nonetheless, a pretty good range. And then within each of those products, we've got different formulations. So sometimes it's high THC, other times it's higher CBD. It might be balanced mixtures of both. It might be some other combination. And so we can use those to help address whatever people might be dealing with as well.
Got it. So you have different variations of products and ways to consume it, and then different variations of levels within those things itself.
Exactly.
I'm assuming in the future you guys add flavors and do edibles and oatmeal raisin cookies or something.
Exactly. That's the hope. I mean, one of the things we typically say is that, look, I mean, it doesn't have to be painful to help deal with your conditions, And so if we can make something have a little bit of flavoring, if we can make something more approachable to people that helps them deal with the condition, why would we not? I mean, that's some of the reason why you've got flavored vitamins, or you've got even some,
right.
children's medication that has some flavor in there.
Exactly. So step by step then, and this is a confusing point for a lot of people because it's new, and we do see like ads on the radio for, and we do see like websites that are clickbait, and no one's really sure like who's authoritative on this. So obviously you guys have been licensed by the state. You know the ins and outs. You're doing this legally. You have a facility that's monitored or whatever you have to say. So step by step, like very clear, very obvious. If someone wants to use cannabis to treat mental pain or anxiety or physical pain, how do they do that? What is the correct way to do it?
Simplest way is if you've got one of those conditions, then you need to visit with a provider who's licensed in Iowa to get your card. And you can do that with those folks that you are in your medical circles. So whether that's your doctor, it might be your ARNP, it might be your podiatrist, for instance. It might be a PA if you see a PA instead of an MD or DO. All of those folks are eligible to certify. So you do that, you meet with that person, and you can do that meeting online. It takes, a short amount of time for the doctor to fill out the form. It's pretty straightforward form. It identifies, yes, you've got that condition and, some identifying information. You take that form along with a form you fill out for the Department of Public Health. And all of that can be done online. It's a multi-step process that they kind of walk you through. It's, what's your name and prove that you live in Iowa and those sorts of things. It's very simple to get done. You can do it all online. And once you submit that, then as long as you've filled out everything correctly, you can get your certification sometimes within 24 hours or maybe 48 hours. There's no longer even cards. It's all going to be tied to your photo ID. And so as soon as you get an email back from the Department of Public Health, boom, you're good to go. You can walk into any of the dispensaries across the state, present your ID, we can look you up, and you can be ready for action. So it's gotten to be a very smooth, easy process. And you can, like I said, you can meet with doctors online, you can meet with your doctor in person. That's just, tends to be a slower route for getting an appointment and all that sort of thing. And then filling all the information out online and submitting it, boom, you're into the dispensary. Like I said, 24 hours, 48 hours sometimes for people, which is really a big improvement and something that I think has also helped us add some patients to the program over the last year.
For sure. You say go to your doctor. There are two questions here. Go to your doctor and then go online. Two questions come off that, and we'll tackle them one at a time. The first thing is, what if your doctor says, yeah, I'm not comfortable with this? Then how do you find a different doctor or someone who will help you?
Yeah, we see a lot of people that do have that problem. We've got some places on our website where you can go and see some of the other online resources that are offered in this state. So Iowa licensed providers who can certify. I'd certainly encourage people to check that out if your primary doc maybe isn't up for it or has questions and is going to not certify you.
I'll make sure to get a list from you, and we'll put that on the Iowa podcast page as well to make it really
for
easy.
Sure.
And then the other one was before, because we only have like 30 seconds, but the other one was, where do you go? You said then go online and fill out the forms. Is that the Department of Public Health website, or is there a different website?
It is. Yep. It's right on their website. There's an Office of Medical Cannabidiol, it's called. We can make sure you guys got the link for that as well, but very, very easy patient registration right from that website.
That's incredible. Lucas Nelson, the group president of Bud and Mary's. Let me know and let Iowans know when you have, you need testing subjects, because I'm sure a lot of people will be very interested in that.
Absolutely.
Lucas, what is the website? Give that out so people can find you.
budmary.com. budmary.com.
And if you're driving, everybody, we will, of course, put that on iowapodcast.com as well. Lucas Nelson, group president of Bud and Mary's, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you for the time, and hopefully we'll be able to help treat some more Iowans here soon.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.